see the path to the championship. I can see it.
Coca-Cola 600 belongs to Ryan Blaney.
Blaney's learned how to win over the last couple of months.
Blaney! Harmon! They spin behind him! It's going to be Blaney!
We're going to win this thing.
Ryan Blaney is going to win his way into the championship for...
You have to run a perfect race to get it.
Ryan Blaney is a NASCAR Cup Series champion!
What an unbelievable year. What an unbelievable playoffs for us.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 137 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the show offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and special guest interviews all throughout the year. This week, we break down Team 12's run in the Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond Raceway. Steve, welcome back for another episode of the Team Blaney Podcast. Another short track race is in the books. This one was at Richmond, and we finally got to see the debut of the wet weather tires in a points race, and can't exactly say I'm excited about that. But hey, all I have to say is Goodyear, whatever you're doing with these groove tires or whatever that gets them to wear out, like just kind of take that, beef it up a little bit more, and give us those on short tracks just everywhere, and everything will be fine. I'm sure it's just that easy. They could just whip that up and we can go to town.
I drove by there this morning, actually. I drove right by the hangar where the blimp is, actually, and they look hard at work over there trying to figure it out.
I was gonna say, did you give them your pointers? Yeah,
I went over there and talked to them real quick. What I saw last night, but these tires and this whole package. It's so funny is we're going to talk about all the other things that happened in the race, but this package didn't do anything different on this short track, at least. So not impressed so far with the new package.
No, and honestly, it was almost not talked about at all. It was weird because, like, at Phoenix, that's all you heard about. And then at Bristol, you heard about it because people were confused and thought it was going to be used there, and it wasn't. And then there's a little bit of chatter throughout the week heading into the race, but I think because of the rain, because the whole wet weather tire situation, and then everything else that happened throughout the race, I didn't even hear about it really at all. So the only part of the race that was exciting outside of the finish, which I guess you could say if it's exciting if you like chaos, was again, just much like it was at North Wilkesboro in that heat race, and at that truck race where they use these tires as well. Because of the fall off, you saw like side by side racing on a short track, and people didn't know what to do. Some guys were being kind of timid, and some guys were being aggressive, and the rest of the race was typical, I would say.
Yeah, we had the varied strategies, whether to take tires 2 times or halfway in the stage, and those were great things to watch. Even watching Ryan the way we watch Ryan, his strategies actually worked really, really well. He went from a position of being way back, buried down a lap, to actually lead lap finish when it all said and done. So yeah, if you like that kind of racing, you like the strategy of 2 pit stops, 1 pit stop, completing the cycle, seeing where you end up, how many cars do you get pinned behind that are a lap or 2 down that you got to get by them to make up the ground that you lost, and 10 lap, 15 lap newer tires than the other guy because you went a little longer than they did, and whether or not you're making ground up in those laps. That was great for all that, except for a caution or 2 that happened that shouldn't have happened when they happened, but we'll get into that too. Otherwise, go ahead.
Did you get a chance to catch the Xfinity Series race?
Yeah, I watched some of it.
What'd you think of the toss? I thought it was a 10 out of 10 bumper throw.
That was
by Joey Gase.
Great bumper throw. I had the same problem looking and watching him do it that they did on TV about the gloves. I deal with pieces of sheet metal, and every day I deal in wholesale parts and stuff, GM parts. So I deal with pieces of metal like that, and I would not pick up a piece of metal like that without gloves on. He's lucky he didn't slice something open. I'm sure he was pretty careful, but the toss was excellent. What a great toss. The only thing better would have been if he could have stuffed it in the window, but
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll get fined. They've already got a t-shirt, I think, available.
Both sides. There's Dawson
Yeah.
Cram has a shirt out and Joey has a shirt out. I think Joey's was
Yeah.
a lot more aesthetically pleasing, but
Yeah.
yeah, sounds like they're both going to go to charity, which is fun, but heck of a
Fun,
throw.
but-
And it's an Xfinity Series guy. I know he's a veteran, but yeah,
Mhm.
you see some of these Cup guys try to throw stuff and they're not on target at all.
Yeah, friend
But,
and friend of the pod, Taylor was in working this weekend for her show, and she actually got a question with him at the Infield Care Center. That was kind of cool to see too. So I think she's going to be there again this weekend. So look out
I
for
believe
Taylor.
so. Yeah.
Look out for Taylor down at Martinsville, reporting on all the news that's fit to report.
So let's talk about qualifying practice and how those things went at Richmond. As they, like you said, we mentioned they're kind of setting up for a new package. Fords have a new body, so things are going to be a little bit different. But honestly, practice looked pretty good. But again, they're on slicks, and it was bright and sunny and daytime.
Daytime, yeah. Yeah, Saturday, Group A, 20 minutes. Tim's tells them to gonna run it out unless there's something not good. And this is a typical thing that they always do. Get out there, and if it doesn't feel good, come in right away, and we make whatever change we need to make. But if not, run it out. And this is always good when they do run it out. We know they're in good shape, that the balance is where they want it. He's second off a pit road behind the 54 with a 22 behind him, and about 4 or 5 laps in, he's P4, only about 1/10 off of the fastest time, which is the 5 car. 10 laps in, still really good laps. And they kind of get behind somebody at some point, but at lap 14, he passes whoever it is too. So during practice, to actually pass somebody is kind of rare, but then it also means that your car is handling pretty good if you can get by somebody. Jonathan says one of the best cars out there, and by lap 11, Tim says it's the fastest car on the track that lap. Lap 22, they tell him that the 14 has about 10 lap newer tires. And I think at TV shows at one point where the 14 is actually behind him. And what's interesting about this is he's got 10 lap newer tires, but the rest of this run, he can't get around Ryan during practice. And that's pretty good. Third best 20 lap average at one point. Then, by the end of it, it's the best 30 lap average. And 11 cars had run 30 laps or more consecutive in that practice, and the Group A ends up being faster than Group B, so it's going to be the fastest 30 lap of the day. About 11 cars once again stayed out the whole session. He ran 49 laps. 14 cars ran, at least 30 laps, and then 7 cars ran over 45 laps, which tells you a lot of them were out there the whole time. The 5, the 22, the 17, the 42, and the 48 were actually the fast 5. So, it was like 6th or 7th there for an individual lap time. But overall, when they start clicking laps off that's excellent, because for good portions of the race, you're going to see long green flag runs. Group B was a lot slower. Their fast 5 at the end of it was the 34, the 6, the 43, the 24, and the 20. So a couple Fords up there, both groupings, which was kind of exciting to see. We get to qualifying, and Ryan goes out 16th in the Group A there. He climbs into the car with about 9 to go, and they discuss how the cars are coming to the green, whether to back up the corner in 3 and 4. Ryan also wants to know if Joey's making a shift or not. And he is downshifting in 1 and 3 on his first lap, at least there. Ryan runs a 22.448 with 2 to go. But then, the 54 bumps him at the end. So Ryan ends up P6. Going to start 12th. 22.54, the 5, the 1, and the 48 were the fast 5 there going for the pole. Group B was the 9, the 23, the 2, 38 and the 24. So that, the 22 and the 2 both make the run for the pole. The 5 ends up with the pole, and the 2 and the 22 end up starting 9th and 10th. Ryan is in Group A, so it's the outside line. He starts 12th. So all 3 of the Penske cars, you could throw a blanket over them to start the race, and it would have been, sure been nice, a little nicer. The higher up you are, you get the better pit selection and so forth, but not too bad. 12th, and that normally we go forward from here. So we get to Sunday, stages of 70, 230, and 400. 9 sets of tires, a fuel run. If they did fuel run, was 120 to 135 laps. And then we get the wet weather tires to start the race.
Yeah, it's one of those weird. It was one of those typical NASCAR weekends where I saw somebody again posted a GIF or just a screen grab of the radar across the U.S. and it just said, didn't have any city names on it. It just said, guess where NASCAR's racing this weekend, and it was right where the one storm in the entire country was, and it's like, of course, that's how this works. And yeah, so they're bringing out the grooved wet weather tires that
you ought to send me that picture next time.
Yeah.
So I can put you on it. Copy and paste a picture of Adam right on top of it. Put your face right there, like dancing around right over on the radar.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So the pit stall 29 with the 15 in front, an opening behind him, and then the 19 behind that opening, which was advantageous to our friends Justin and Chelsea. They were celebrating their anniversary there at the track that they got married at last year, and their favorite drivers are within one pit box of each other. We get a competition caution set up for lap 30 here. And Tim and Ryan talk about staying off the paint because the paint's wet. Basically, with these tires, you want to find the moisture, though. You don't want to run to an area that's dry. So they send them out at about 20 after 7 to see, kind of see what, and the rain is letting up at this point, too. So Jonathan says, as long as the rear rain tires, back it down one light coming down pit road, because there was a little bit different speed with those tires. But we get green flag at about 7:30. And lap 1, passing the 2 car, getting to 11th. And at lap 2, we're up to 10th. At lap 4, trying to get into the high lane, and the 17 gets by back to 11th. Here at lap 8, in the low lane, we passed the 17. We're back to 10th here. At lap 10, working underneath the 54 and passing the 54 within a lap or two up to 9th. 54 gets it back a lap later, back to 10th here. And at lap 13, we have the 22, I'm sorry, and the 54, and we pass both of them, getting to 8th here, but then Joey comes underneath, undercuts him, comes back underneath him, gets passed by Joey, and then,
just notice we're racing really hard
here.
Back and forth with multiple guys. So.
Yeah. And by doing this, you're not staying where it's totally wet either, because you're not thinking about trying to be where it's wet. You're just thinking about trying to make these passes. And, Ryan says it's way too tight here. And then, basically what happens is the right front tire goes away. He says that at lap 18 when the 17 passes him. And he's back to 10th. And the next bunch of laps, it just, I'm going to skip over the laps, because by lap 27, he's back to 23rd. Guys get around them, they go by him, but the right front is just destroyed. And there is a picture on Twitter. And I can't remember who actually had the picture, but they showed the right front, and it was just hammered. So they get that comp caution at lap 30 here, and he's back to 27th. And this is a non-competitive pit stop with the 5 leading. Ryan says that was way too tight. They pit lap. So let's see here. Yeah, it took them. Time wise, I didn't even look at time on this.
Yeah, they were pacing around a lot, but
they were going around that. Yeah, there's actually Justin sent me a video actually from behind the pit box where they kind of run around the front of the car. They do the right side, but then there was something. They come over to do the left, and something must have been on the right. But they're allowed to make changes during this time period too, based on the setup from from the wet weather tire to the slicks. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes, sir.
Somebody pointed out it was actually on, I think, on XM today on one of the NASCAR shows that, NASCAR said, and even like teams and drivers said, the reason they did these non-competitive pit stops was because pit road was still wet and it wasn't dry yet, and they didn't want a car to come sliding in, and they didn't want pit crew members to fall down. And then somebody said, well, what about all these years when it's rained at a road course? No, nothing changed. Nothing changed with pit stops then. And I'm like, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, the sliding into the box is one thing. The sliding coming out of the box is the part that scares me more than anything else, because it actually happens on the next set of pit stops where they get bottled up 3 or 4.
Yeah, true.
And it's because normally when them guys punch the accelerator, the back end of the car does something the way they know how to handle it. But if it's wet, the conditions are wet, and it doesn't do that. And that's the difference between being on the wet weather tires versus the slicks. The wet weather tires, okay. In the wet, you're right. Pit stop in the wet, you go from wet to wet in the wet. I don't see any problem with that. But they went from wet to dry.
Yeah.
And then the next set of pit stops, like I said, the pit lane wasn't totally dry still, and they were on slicks. And that would have been really dangerous too. So I think that's where the difference is that everybody's missing here, is that you went from the wet weather tires to the regular slicks and didn't have dry conditions for those slicks. And like I said, the next set of pit stops, they take extra time to dry the pit lane again, because they were going to try and wanted to do competitive pit stop, but they're going from slick to slick, and they needed everything to be dry, for that.
Sure. I think that was an interesting point, but yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference that people are missing, is if you did that competitive pit stop where you were going just from wet weather tire to wet weather tire, I think you could have got away with it. Where
I think I was more sad because I knew, with especially the newsflash, the 12 crew has actually been the fastest consistent pit crew on pit road all year long.
Four tire pit stops, best average 4 tire pit stops.
Where Ryan had fallen to in this run, I was like, we could probably gain 5-6 spots here just on time alone, but we didn't get that opportunity, so that was unfortunate.
Yeah. So Ryan and Tim are discussing what to do with the chews here. Jonathan says to kind of reset where we were in practice yesterday. Tim says the low lines are going to be popular because, once again, now they're on the slicks, and everybody's going to want to go to where it's the driest on the track now. 27 for the chews here. Tim says, hey, stay in the game. Ryan's like 10-4, long way to go. And the restart, it's funny, is that he gains a couple of rows by picking the outside lane, because a lot of people did go to the low. So he was like 24th for restart. By lap 52, he's up to 23rd. But it kind of gets stuck behind some of these guys. The 71 gets stuck behind him for a lap or two, and then the 42 there passes, and he passes the 8 passes, and he passes the 8 back. By lap 60, he's in 26 now. And then at lap 65, we get a caution for the 99. So he's in 25th. This should end the stage. He says, we're plowing tight. And they were talking about non-competitive stops. And this is when they ran pit road a couple more times to try and dry it. And Jonathan literally asked for numbers to adjust, tight center 2, free off 3. So that's big numbers to adjust. Usually Ryan's like within a number or a half even sometimes. So that's a big move. 5 ends up winning that stage. And then NASCAR does change it to live pit stop when they do come in. They're in. This is the only pit stop of the bunch, and this is what I said about it getting clogged up here. I got them at like an 11.9. So they lost 2 or 3 spots on this. But once again, if you watch the in-car on this, that when they come out of the stall, it kind of like all got bottlenecked. Just literally right there in that position of pit road. Like a bunch of guys must have been coming out at the same time. So it kind of got pinned and had to wait for somebody. So it wasn't all on the pit stop as far as losing a position or two. A lot of it may have had to do with just letting somebody get past you instead of getting nailed into the wall or something there. Cause
The
it's a decent sized pit road, but it's not totally wide. I mean, it's about 3 lanes,
Yeah, and the tire carrier did make a wedge adjustment. So he was a
Yeah,
little bit
so-
slower to come around the car because of that. But yeah, if you watch that in car, it was mayhem when he goes to pull out of the stall. And I think he was just in survival mode at that point. And
yeah,
we
you
dropped a
can't-
couple spots.
yeah, it's not really worth, tearing the car up at that point. Yeah, Jonathan, a little wedge, work on both the issues there. They says we're probably going to split this stage in half. At least that's the plan right now. And Ryan chooses the bottom here. The restart lap 80. It's 3 wide. He's in the low lane. By lap 96 here, he's behind the 47 and the 77. And this is crazy because
Awful.
if you watch the in-car, he's faster than both these guys. Way faster than the 47 and a little bit faster than the 77. And the two of them are door to door for, I don't know how many laps here.
And they're
At least
bouncing
10
off each
10
other too.
10
like
10 laps, right? And you don't want to be third man in. You don't want to end up being the guy that tangles in the middle of it and gets messed up. So you gotta kind of like get there, but watch it or try to help one or the other to make the move. But literally for like 10 laps, he's behind them.
felt like an eternity.
Yeah. By lap 115, so it was about 20 laps actually. Lap 115, the 77 finally cleared the 47. The next lap, he passes the 47 on the outside. Now he does this a couple times over the evening. That tells you how good the car is. Goes on the outside to pass him. And at lap 121, he passes on the outside of the 77. He's up to 25th. And the green flag pit cycle actually starts here. Now, this is for the guys that are going to do it in 2 stops instead of 1. So he hangs out for a little bit. By lap 127, he's in 9th. But by lap 130, they decide to pit. So within about 10 laps of the cycle starting, they pit. Then they're going to know they're going to split it into thirds now. But they went longer, so now they're going to have fresher tires than the guys who did it at the beginning, and however long that lasted. This stop is a 9.376. For a green flag pit stop, that's spectacular. Lap 136, he's passes the, he's in 29th, but he's passing the leader to get from 2 laps to 1 lap. So he, faster than the leader. Lap 140, he's up to 25th. And they do tell him at that point they're going to be pitting one more time. Lap 142 passes 71. And first place is the 7 car who hadn't pitted yet at that point. Lap 151, there are more that are pitting now. These are guys that are trying to split the thing in half. But lap 152, passing the 34 up to 25th. And we're racing the 14 for the lucky dog, who's up in 19th. Tim says they're running the same lap times as the leader in clean air. At lap 159, past the 14, we're up to 18th. Now, other guys have assumed the lucky dog position. It's the only problem now is that you get to a guy, but meanwhile, the leader may have lapped somebody else. So lap 160, Ryan says he's tight center, loose off. Lap 167, he passes the 41, gets the 17th. And then we get this caution at lap 170 for the 8 car. Now we're P18 at this point. We weren't going to be lucky dog. The 43 was the lucky dog, but he was only a position or 2 away from being the lucky dog. And the truth is, if you can get to the end of the stage at this point and be the lucky dog, this is where he gets a little bit angry on the radio. If you can get to the end of the stage and be, if you can get to the end of the stage and be the lucky dog, and he probably could have done that. He probably could have got to the 43 and passed the 43 between there and the end of the stage. Well, then you get the lap back that way. And then you got a whole nother stage to work on things, But no, the 8 car, I hate to say it, but this was not a caution. This was, especially since not everything cycled out. You had a guy who was leading, who was on a different strategy than some of the other guys. And he needed more laps to see if his strategy was going to work out, the 5 car, and he didn't get it. And it kind of pinned him back into the field where, his day wasn't over per se, but it changed his trajectory for sure. If it would have stayed green and they would have got through the another pit cycle and he would have made up the ground on the guys who were pitting twice versus his one pit stop. It would have been really interesting to see where it would have shook out, but
Yeah, what Ryan immediately brought up was like Bristol. And he said this in his, just immediate reaction to the caution coming out, like saying, essentially saying that this is not a caution. We just saw guys, hit the wall, blow tires at Bristol, and nothing was thrown. And then, yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, that's going to be talked about all week long because that was kind of a pivotal moment in the race. And
changed, like I said, changed trajectory
unfortunate
of strategies, and the guys on the teardown brought up Atlanta with the guys coming to pit road and spinning out and everything. And they said, well, they were out of the groove and this and that. And well, Kyle never actually spun. He didn't cause any smoke. He just bounced a little bit off the wall and then kept going. And if you just give him that second or two more to keep going, whatever. We're pitting second time by, and this pit stop is 9.67. Another excellent stop here. Restarting at lap 178 here, and restarting as the lucky dog. Okay, so we're 25th.
Yep.
We are the lucky dog. We're in the outside lane. Some cars took the wave around. They're all the way in the back.
Yep.
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? I don't know. I don't understand what this guy's thing is sometimes. I'm trying
Funny
to be good.
that you
I'm
bring
trying to
up
be
friends.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the fact that the 23, a friend, actually stacks the lineup on this restart, and then we're the sandwich, or we're the meat of the sandwich here, and the 2 car who I said just needs to have a little bit more situational awareness, just drives through on the restart as if nobody was stacking up, and unfortunately it sends Ryan out into the corner, and from the lucky dog position all the way back to the 30 plus 33rd, 34th.
And once again, if he could have maintained that lucky dog from here to the end of the stage, right? And well, I'll read it here later on when we get to that part, but we'll say more about the 2 in a minute.
What's funny to me is as Ryan makes his way back up through the field here, like he keeps asking.
Yeah, who was it?
I think he thought it was the 10 at first, and then he finally gets the
wanted
message
to make
that
sure,
who it was, but he like 2 or 3 times says, who was that? Who's that pushed me into the corner? Because I'm like, is he looking for payback or does he just want to know? So that was that was interesting.
So within 5 laps, he's 33rd. By lap 206 there he gets 29th, lap 210, 28th. Lap 214, he's behind the 8 car, and he's a half second faster. And the 8 car is on the lead lap running 15th. So here's another thing. I tried to keep track of this a little bit, but there are points and times, I'm keeping track of who he's racing for position with, but he's also racing around the guys on the lead lap, and he's racing around them. And even though they're on the lead lap. He's 27th on lap 215. He passes the 21, gets to 26 there. At lap 230, the 19 wins the stage. He's P26 with only 18 on the lead lap. And Jonathan says, we're going to free you up here with some wedge. And this point, Tim says that the 2 car apologized. Okay. And this is how I know that, first off, the 2 car, situational awareness. You have a nice way of saying things, Adam. You're very, very good and very proper. I couldn't do it. He punted him. Okay. Yep. He was just not there are points and times you got to realize he did win the Daytona 500, but there are points and times that you watch him and you think, would we be better off with somebody else as a teammate? And this is one of them. And Ryan basically says, I don't care if he's sorry. He still did it. Took out, edited anything we needed to edit out of there, but basically he still did it, and that's the key. I've watched Ryan for 10 plus years now, and actually more than that with the other series, and there are points and times where he could have done something like this to somebody, and he made sure that he didn't. Or if he ever did, he felt so bad about it. I remember the one race at Darlington, the one Xfinity race where he hit knocked Danica, And he felt so bad about that situation because that's not the way he races and that's not the way he is. And a lot of these guys race like ask for forgiveness. Don't ask for, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And then later on, I'll ask for forgiveness, and that's fine if it's somebody from another team or another manufacturer. But when it's your own teammate, like you said, situational awareness, that's a nice way of putting it. It really is. He's really got to look out a little bit better for who's around him and this guy helped him win the Daytona 500, and this is the way he gets treated by him.
Yeah.
That's
The
all
only
I'm
thing
saying.
I will say is the rest of the way, I mean, the 2 does not have a good race. The rest of the way, anytime that that yellow 12 car was coming up behind the 2 seas parted.
Got
So
the heck
he
out of the
knew
way.
it. He knew he messed up. So at least he was smart enough to
Get out of the
understand
way.
that. So yeah.
Unfortunate. They're pitting from 22nd here, second time around, and this is a 10.7 7. The restart lap 240 with the 19 leading. Lap 245. The 2 is on the outside, and he disappears pretty quickly. And by lap 248, up to like 21st here with the lucky dog being the 99, and a couple cars between him and the 99. So, he's still got to get to him. Lap 251 past 38. Lap 275, Johnson says we're going to run a little longer than we did before, but we're still probably on this two pit stop strategy. 54 is on the lead lap, 14th, and he's between Ryan and the lucky dog, the 99. So this is a good point in time that if you can get around the guy, maybe you can get to the 99. Maybe something will happen once you get to that lucky dog spot, and we get the lap back that way. But at lap 285, the green flag stops being. So now we're going to get into a cycle. At lap 290, the 20 leads, and he's P8, 1 lap down because he goes a little bit longer again. At lap 295, he passes the 99, but they pit the next lap. And this is about an 11-second stop here. Lap 300, we're back to 31st now, waiting for the cycle to kind of cycle through. And by lap 309 up to 28th, 315 up to 22nd. The cycle continues. For lap 325, we're up to 20th, and we passed the 38 car to do it. So now we're still lap down for P20, but literally, like I said, they are racing past guys that are in the top 10 at this point, which is just crazy. Because like I said, I'm trying to pay attention to the positions, watching them on screen and watching the timing and scoring, trying to figure out, okay, well, is that, like this situation here, is that the 38 in front of him? Yes, it is. Okay, that's a position. But as they, goes past them, then all of a sudden he's running around somebody in the top 10 and he passes a guy in the top 10. And that tells you a lot about how good the car really was.
It was kind of disheartening. And I was letting people know in the Discord, we're all kind of following along. And I'm like, he just passed the guy in 13th. He just passed the guy in 12th. I'm like, man, this is so frustrating. Because if it had the speed, Tim is telling him, like, you're running, you mentioned it earlier, you're running top 5 speed, fastest on the track. And it's like, gosh, man, if we could just catch a break and get back on the lead lap.
The lap 333, the another cycle's beginning here. Does like a 9-7 stop here when they do come in. At lap 340 is actually 12th, waiting for this cycle to kind of continue. Excuse me. At 355 here, the leader, he passes the leader to get one of his laps back. Because once again, when you pit here, you lose a lap, and he gains one back on the track, which is great. At lap 357, passing 77 up to 23rd. By lap 376, we've passed the 8 car and we're 19th. So still not lucky dog material, but we during that whole stretch, passing the 3 car, the 99 car, the 77, the 38, he's getting past all the cars he was better than all day to begin with. And really, if he could just get to the lead lap with fresh tires, it would have been fun to see what he would have done with some of the top 10, top 15. And then we get the caution at lap 398 with the 5 car and the 23. They take the wave around. So this is cool. They get back on the lead lap, and all the lead lap cars, I think all of the lead lap cars actually hit it. And I found that kind of cool, except
Which is
if I
really the
was-
only reason we could do the wave around. But
yeah,
yeah,
I would have kind of thought that 2 or 3 of the guys at the back end of the top lead lappers would have stayed out, because that would have been interesting, especially if you got 3 or 4 of them. If you got 3 or 4 of them, you had 3 or 4 guys jamming the front for a lap or so, and it would have been really, really cool to see some sort of mayhem like that. There was enough mayhem to begin with, but and it was nice. Bubba actually went down to talk to Larson after the race and apologize for what he did. And Larson was like, "Well, it worked out for me," and he ended up finishing I think a spot better than where he was. So
yeah. What's funny is this was actually the second. I mean, there weren't that many cautions in the day, but this was the second caution of the day where the guy that spun out actually ended up in a better spot than he was like before the spin. So, or well, I guess you can't even call Kyle Busch's a spin, but he stayed on the lead lap. I didn't lose any spots, and I think he may have gained a couple on pit road after that caution came out. Larson,
two spots, yeah.
Larson goes down pit road after his spin, and the 23 has a horrible pit stop, which Bubba mentioned that karma got him real quick.
Yeah,
and the 5 actually gains positions on pit road during a caution, because the thing said because of the different strategies that had strung out so far, and honestly, it was like a classic Richmond race where the field does get strung out. So, man, that was something. I think you texted me like we're mayhem, like that's all we want right now, because I mean, I guess best case scenario for us is there's immediately a crash, then we can come back down, or the 12 can come back down and get fresh tires just to try.
Yeah.
And then, or be a little more competitive, even though everybody that waved around would do the same. But,
right.
But we don't get that, but there is plenty that happens. I mean, the 19, well, there's so much. I mean, I don't know what you say.
Well, first the 11 wins the race. Pit road. Yeah. The 11 wins the race off pit road to begin with. So he becomes the control car, taking the low lane for the restart. And then,
because before this, our teammate there and Joey, who was having a great race, honestly, no matter what happened in that first run. I mean, it's good to see a Penske car running well. He was tracking down the 19, probably wasn't going to get there. But yeah, the 22 and the 19 lose positions on pit road, and the 11 who, I talked about the 12 crew being the most consistent on pit road. The 11 crew has been the ones that have been able to pull off the fastest stops of the year.
Yeah,
but they are kind of inconsistent crew though. So
right, yeah, they don't do it every.
They hit the money stop. They hit a home run on the money stop.
So then we get to the restart, taking the low lane, the 19 in the high lane, and Denny jumps the restart. I mean, every video that I've seen, the in-car camera, everything. Yeah,
I don't know. NASCAR said it's good.
He hits the accelerator before the line. The guys on the teardown were talking about somebody was tweeting, one of the driver coaches for Hendrick. I can't think of his name now. Former driver, Wise?
Josh Wise. Yeah,
Josh
he's
Wise,
like a
yes.
Chevy Performance. Yeah.
Coach. So Josh Wise had texted this, and he is correct. He's studied the numbers. He is giving you a view of what he has observed over the years. And what the numbers say to do is to press the issue. In other words, make it as close as possible, make the move, force NASCAR to come out and say it was illegal. Because 99 times out of 100 at the end of the race on the green, white checkered, they're not going to do it. They're not going to jeopardize that finish with a rule violation. It's like in the NFL, in the fourth quarter, the last couple minutes of a game, the referees kind of lose their flags and don't want to call anything. And you got guys hanging all over each other when there should be pass interference called. Same type of thing. Or the NBA, where the referees swallow the whistle at the end of a game and try to let the players play. Same thing. NASCAR is not going to call that violation. Now, with 50 to go or 100 to go in the race, and that would have happened, they might have done it. They might have made a call and made him come down and do whatever the penalty was for it. We've seen that happen. But at the end of the race, and it's funny is because Martin did something too there that people didn't criticize either, but he hung back. And that's a no-no too. He hung back because that's what you're supposed to do if you need to try to combat that kind of situation, to hang back and get the run. But Denny jumped it to a point where he didn't get a really good chance at get the run. I mean, he made up some of the ground going into 1 or 2, but then by 3 and 4, he was toast, And like I said, Denny broke the rules. Martin broke the rules. Nobody's going to call anything because it's the green white checker. And he had said that on Twitter, and a couple people like Jeff Gluck had retweeted it to let people know this is kind of the thinking here, is to go ahead and press the issue, force NASCAR to make some sort of ruling or not make a ruling, and they weren't going to make that.
So after this restart zone, Denny gets away. The 19 does get back to his outside. And the 19 after the race says he got used up by the 11 and 1. I mean, the 11 ran him high. He didn't like door him or send him into the wall. So, I mean, I think he was just, obviously by what he does the rest of the next 2 laps is he was frustrated. But the 11 gets away. Here comes the 5, who just spun out. 5 is, battling for 3rd there. And the 19 just turns down into him like he wasn't even there. And then those 2 just basically hit each other for the next, lap and a half, all the way past the start-finish line, after Denny wins. And then the 19, after he's done hitting the 5, which I don't know if it's been talked about too much. I haven't listened to Actions Detrimental yet, but he drives after the 11 and just starts slamming him in the bumper. And it's not just that teammate congratulations. It's
I don't think he was congratulating him.
But yeah,
I think he was mad at the 5 for causing the caution.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Not causing, it wasn't his fault that there was a caution. Actually, it was the 23.
He was part of it. He slipped up in front of the 23. 23 just didn't lift, but yeah, I think Martin, and Larson said it after the race. Like, he's like, I think he was just mad and I was the closest one to him. So he still ended up finishing 3rd or something like that. So yeah, it worked out for him. 2nd or 3rd. Yeah. I don't remember, but anywho, Ryan finishes 19th. He didn't lose or gain any positions on that restart essentially, but he survived, and here we are. Unfortunately, it's the 3rd straight Richmond race after, he's had some really good success, and he's kind of slipped back and finishes here. But he did have a fast car, great car in practice. I said it before about Bristol. It's like, I'm so unfortunate that they come in, they have a great practice, they have speed in the car, and then something just weird out of their control essentially happens, and they don't get the opportunity to really showcase it. Like, you can second guess it. You can say maybe he should have just, bide his time in that first stage or that first run with the wet weather tires. Don't push it. But Ryan, the last few years, has become a pretty aggressive driver. And you could see that with his reaction to the race at Bristol. He was one of the few drivers that said he didn't like it, and that he wants, essentially, like, he didn't say this, but this is what I felt like his mentality was. Like, I'm a race car driver. I'm paid to go fast. I don't want to just ride around. So that's worked out great. That's in some situations. Unfortunately, that first run, it didn't work out for the team. And can't we just get a normal weekend when they have a super fast car like that? I'm hoping we see that this weekend coming up.
This weekend coming up. Well, that's another thing. When I said earlier about the package. Okay, so we've seen the package now, 2 different locations. We've seen it at Phoenix, and we've seen it at a short track, 3.25 mile. Now we're going to see it again this week. It doesn't look much different. So that's great, because the last time they raced at this track, I know a couple of people that were in attendance and were very happy with the result. So, and hey, we're going to return. So it's our triumphant return.
Absolutely. But before we get there, and before we fill up our bellies with hot dogs at Martinsville, let's take a look at the NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Last week, Ryan actually moved up for a few spots. This week, he does fall 2 positions, so he's now 5th in the standings, 41 points back of the leader. But I'll read off the whole top 10 here. Again, this is just points. I know there's several guys that have won races that have already locked themselves into the playoffs, but this is the race for the regular season championship here. First, you have Martin Truex Jr., 2nd, Kyle Larson, 3rd, Denny Hamlin, 4th, Ty Gibbs. He continues his impressive run. 5th, Ryan Blaney, again, -2 positions. 5th, 41 points back of Truex, who's the leader. 6th is Christopher Bell. 7th is William Byron. 8th is Chase Elliott. 9th is Ross Chastain. And Tyler Reddick is in the 10th position. Ryan remains the only blue oval in the top 10 in the point standing. So, unfortunately, he's had a pretty big fall. I mean, it's still manageable because this was just one race, but he went from single digits back in the point standings to now 41 points back. So, obviously, since that was just one race, he could make this all back up again with a really strong day at Martinsville. But we'll have to see what happens there because there can be some varying strategies. We saw varying strategies in this race in the fall too. So
maybe they can sneak over to Gibbs and steal a car. Because the top 4 of the top 6 are Gibbs cars.
Yeah,
I mean that's their whole team is in the top 6, not the top 20, not the top 15, the top 6, including the 54. So they're running better and consistent. And once you go deeper into the season, that's what you see is who's running consistent. And obviously Ryan's running consistent to be 5th. So he's running really, really well, and to be the only Ford till 12th place, I think it was, Busher all the way down to 12th. So to be that guy is great, but something is going quite well at Gibbs right now. Now, by the end of the season, that's where it matters, right?
Sure. And speaking of things going well, let's take a look at the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League's point standings, and we'll go through our lineups that we had set for the race at Richmond. And first one of the year, I've been looking forward to talking about, Steve.
Oh, awesome.
I had a fantastic run this week, and part of it was because with about 5 laps to go in stage 2, I said, hey, I should check my fantasy lineup. And lo and behold, I had Martin Truex Jr. in the garage, and I did swap him out for Alex Bowman. So my starting lineup, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr. So that was 36, 25, 46, 51, and 50 points. I did, like I said, swap Alex Bowman and Truex there before the end of stage 2. So Bowman ended up only getting 28 points. Actually, a little bit more than Chastain, who I left in my lineup. So great points-wise. As far as points earned in the lineup itself, let's take a look at my featured matchups. I picked Bell over Busch. That was right. I picked Hamlin over Byron. That was right. I picked Truex over Gibbs. That was right. And I picked Elliott over Bowman. That was right. So good starting lineup, and I swept the board with featured matchups. So that resulted in a tie for 6. I mean, we're going to go over these points earned for the week, and it seems like a lot of people had a lot of similar lineups going into this race because we had multiple ties at positions here. But I was part of a 3-way tie for 6 there with 248 points earned on the weekend.
Yeah, I had Larson, Bubba Wallace, Joey Logano, Chastain, and Chase Elliott in the lineup. So 4 of the 5 guys were in the top 10 for points earned. Chastain only got me 25 points, and I had Ryan in the garage. My thinking was if he'd have made the top 10 by the end of the first stage, which under normal circumstances would have, and then seen how second stage played out, I would have probably swapped him right by the end of the second stage, because he would have probably had a bunch of points. I split the matchups. I had Bell, and that was right, but then I had Byron, which lost to Hamlin there. I had Gibbs, he lost to Truex. I had Chase Elliott, who did beat Bowman, so I only got half of those right, and that's a big difference too. That'd have been, another 20 points, and that would have put me right at the edge of the top 10 if I had that.
So let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned this week at Richmond in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. It actually kicks off with a tie for 9th. Alyssa C. and Go Larson at 241 points earned. Then a 3-way tie for 6th here. Blaney or Bust, U.S. Calvin, and my team, Team Blaney host Adam, 248 points earned. Really, really tight from 6th to 1st here. Then we have a 2-way tie for 4th. Christian Dana and Charlie Boo, or Charlie Abu, 251 points earned. And then a 3-way tie for 1st. The Buckeye Bullet, Dusty Hawk 12, Frank Fan 12, 254 points earned on the weekend at Richmond. So congratulations to those 3 for winning the weekend. Let's take a look at the overall standings, and I'm excited about these 2 because points are just so close this early in the season that one race to the other, there's just so many swings here. Yeah. And I have once again vaulted in front of you. So you're in the 34th position, Mez 12, 1,240 points earned. And then I am 32nd 1,245 points earned. So a 5-point lead, 5-point advantage I have right now going into next week's race at Martinsville. Let's take a look at the top 10 in the overall standings. Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. In 10th, US Calvin, 1,343. 9th is Go Larson, 1,357. 8th is Dr. Race Chaser, 1,359. 7th is Go 12 Go, 1,360. 6th is Frank Fan 12, 1,366. And 5th is Factory of Sadness 6, 1,367. 4th is Penske Fan 24, 1,371. 3rd, Alyssa C, 1,372. 2nd, Blaney or Bust, 1,374. So tight there between 2nd and 4th, really. And then in the first position, Blaneyac 10 leading the way, 1,386 points. So we have a little ways to go to get ourselves up there into the top 10. Honestly, I'd be happy with the top 20. 32nd, though, is about my average during the regular season because I don't get hot until the playoffs. So, but that brings us now to this weekend's race as we continue on the short track swing in the NASCAR Cup Series and we head for the spring race at Martinsville Speedway. Things kick off on Friday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Long John Silver's 200 on FS1. Saturday, this will make you happy. 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's not going to make you happy. NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at Martinsville. Actually, you're going to be on the road probably. This doesn't matter. FS2. This is why. FS2 is where practice and qualifying will be at. So, so for those of you that don't have FS1 or FS2, definitely don't have FS2.
Right, but they'll put it on. They'll put it on the Fox Sport app. So, but truthfully, I need 2 phones. I'll be somewhere. Trust me, I'll be somewhere where I can sit, watch, and listen to it at that point. Yeah. So, it'd be nice to have 2 phones because I do like to listen to the scanner during practice. I do get some insight from that. Tim's pretty good talker during practice.
Sure.
But,
so 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, NASCAR Cup Series practice qualifying FS2 for Martinsville. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, NASCAR Xfinity Series Dude Wipes 250 FS1. So it is on FS1 for the Xfinity Series race. It is a night race there in Martinsville. Then Sunday, April 7th, 3 p.m. Eastern time, you have the NASCAR Cup Series Cookout 400 at Martinsville Speedway on FS1. So Cookout sponsoring another race in the Cup Series this year. And that one, again, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So an afternoon race, Xfinity Series races at night, Truck Series races at night. Another week with the new short track package. Let's see what happens at Martinsville, I guess.
No, like I said, I'm down for it. It's just, let's not have any curveballs, let's not have, we brought an all new tire that's not really a new tire, or, the weather looks good, so I don't think we're looking at rain or anything like that. So let's have a nice normal weekend where we practice, we qualify, we race, we do good pit stops. And, we finish where we're supposed to finish, not where circumstances take things, avoiding, don't get me wrong. This team is very good at avoiding circumstances or working around them. And they did a great job to get to where they were in the race. But truthfully, where they deserve to be is a whole nother story. They were a top 10 car and just never got a chance to prove it.
Now, this is why we don't want there to be anything weird happening, because Martinsville Speedway, arguably Ryan Blaney's best track on the entire circuit. 16 starts in his career, 1 win, 8 top 5s, 10 top 10s, average start of 9.4, average finish of 9.0. In his career, Ryan has only finished outside of the top 20 one time. That came in 2017 with a 25th place finish. Let me just read through his last several finishes here. I'll go back to 2018. The last time he had what I would consider a bad finish was 20th in the fall race. Since then, 4th, 5th, 2nd, 11th, 4th, 3rd, 7th. Then he punched his ticket to the championship 4 in the fall there with a first place victory last season. So 9.0 average finish. He's coming off a win there. He's coming off of 1, 2, 3, 4 straight top 10s. 3 of those were top 5s. one of, if not his best track. It has to be his best track with a 9th place average finish, basically a 9th place average start. Man, he's just something about Martinsville. And this was one of those things, we listed off a couple back-to-back 2nd place finishes there. There's been some other circumstances, pit stop issues, cautions, strategies gone awry or something like that, where that's kept him out of victory lane, but they got over that hump last season. Then they got over the hump to win the championship too. So now they know how to do it. They have the playbook. Hopefully they have the car.
Yeah. It's, it'd be a nice weekend to battle back and forth with the 11 all day. That'd be the best, because nobody's going to run away with this race. What they did last year. I mean, it'd be great if they did it again, but the truth is that the 11 car right now is at the top of its game. The Denny's at the top of its game, the Gibbs cars as a whole. So, the 19 and the 11 and then, hopefully the 12 is running with them all day long.
So we talked a little bit about fantasy just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to read off some of the drivers that have gone to victory lane here in the last several races. And obviously there's going to be a mix of the previous generation car and the next gen car, but I'm going to go back to 2019 because there's a guy in this list that has multiple wins here. 2019 fall race, Truex. Spring race, Truex. Chase Elliott, Truex, Bowman, Byron, Bell, Larson, and then Blaney. So Larson and Blaney, at least in the next gen era, Byron, Bell, Larson, Blaney have all gone to victory lane in this car. Again, the package is going to be slightly different, but as we've seen at these last couple short tracks, more short like tracks, it hasn't made that much of a difference. So Byron, Bell, Larson, Blaney are all guys that sound perfect for a fantasy lineup, honestly, this weekend.
Yeah, you got to look at the Gibbs cars because of the way they've just been executing lately. Ryan is the top forward out there. And Logano too, because Logano is, he had a good day yesterday, and there's no doubt about the team has the speed, and those two guys are using it properly. So hopefully you don't have to battle with him much during the day, but and look for him to be another guy to be up there in the top 10 all day long.
Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of the podcast. I think both of us plan to be in Martinsville this weekend. So if you do happen to see us, wave hello. Maybe I'll have a sticker for you. And hopefully we get to see an exciting race, and hopefully we get to see the 12 car celebrate in victory lane right there on the front stretch again at Martinsville. So thank you everyone once again for tuning into this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. We also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Great interview we just had with Leah Blaney Reeves. That was last episode, right? I think so.
Yes.
Yep. So Steve sat down with Leah, got all the information about the upcoming Pickle for a Purpose. Is that what it is? Pickleball tournament. And what I just saw on their social media accounts that they've started up a new monthly newsletter too that you can sign up for. So I'd sign up for that, and you'll learn even more about that event. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels and the Netherlands. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.